You know, usually people will start like, hello, hi, hi. Do you all want to be in the camera? No? Okay, it's our first class. Usually I'll start my first class with a prayer. So I invite everybody, whatever faith, just pray and recognize God, because He is our everything, okay? Father Lord, I give thanks to you for this day, and I pray that you will be with our students, give them the wisdom to go through and the energy to go through the syllabus, and help them along the way. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay. Let me see. Okay, my recording is going on. Testing. Okay. I put this up lah, better. Normally, I start the first class with a one-by-one introduction. Don't worry, okay? I don't do it to you all because I think you are very old for that, okay? You don't agree? Then we can do it, all right? But usually for the P level, because this is like a terminal level with you guys, some I remember the faces lah, okay? Some are like really new to me. And that's the biggest regret I usually will have, that we don't really have a time of engaging each other, of knowing each other, of be together in the process. So the Chinese say is, you are 一叉, how do you say that? 一叉什么? Sorry, I don't know Chinese. It's like you just pass through like, don't know each other. It's like you walk past me, I walk past you, like that, okay? So that's us in this part. I will have a chat group for all of us. We can still know each other through chit-chatting, talk nonsense inside, okay? All right? Now, and I want to introduce a bit about myself to you. That's me. That's me, all right? That's my Facebook. Everybody is on social media and they want to make themselves more famous. So I also must be in, all right? But generation now don't use Facebook. They prefer Insta. If you're still Facebook, you are my generation. If you're on Insta, you are a young one, all right? I don't like Insta. I really hate Insta because there's nothing there to read. It's just pictures, all right? So I don't know, people nowadays don't like reading. They like looking at photograph, okay? So that's why I'm still with Facebook. And this is my family. A bit slow, computer very old, okay? Because high res. Wow, that's really slow, man. I think it's because of the webcam, all right? My kids all celebrated birthday last year, so it's taken at that time. They are all born in the month of November. Wow, don't ask me how, okay? I can open another class if you want to know that, all right? Guess who is my mom? The first, the second, or the third? Second, The rest? First, right? See, I know you all will say first one. Just because my size is like that, you think my mom must be like that, right? Okay? Yeah, my mom is the second one, okay? The four of them belongs to the genetic of long life people, because my grandmother really lived very long. My grandmother died at the age of 100 plus. So my uncle is already 90 plus, and he's still very healthy. And he's a smoker and a drinker, okay? And no, that's not the secret, please. Don't go back and say, oh, now I know how to live long, is to smoke a lot and drink a lot. No, that's not the secret, okay? So if you do that a lot, you only become like him, which is very, very poor, all right? So don't do that, okay? Your health is very badly affected. Normally, I really usually ask students to tell me about yourself, but I won't do it with you all, okay? So, but I usually tell students about something. in the first class, just to have a way of starting. This lady, her name is called Stephanie Fast. She looks like what nationality? Indonesian? Filipino. Wow. Okay, wrong. Okay. No one guess she's a Malaysian. Just because her name is like that, you don't guess she's a Malaysian, right? Okay. This is a book that I came across last year. So since I don't know what to share, so I thought sharing a very nice story before we start our Chinese New Year, okay? You notice every time when there's a Chinese New Year, all the advertisements are generally inclined to one message. The message of Chinese New Year advertisement is go home and see your parent. Oh, you realize that? I don't know why. You never see that in Hari Raya and God. Hari Raya, people show that balik kampung, see your parent, or they don't have one, okay? Or Deepavali, go and see your parent. Only Chinese. So that shows how terrible Chinese are, right? Don't see parent. Is that the real thing or what? I don't know. Okay, anyway, this lady was the product. Wow, that's a very accounting term, okay? Of the Korean War, that time where Korean had war, all right? So the war is over, and the soldier all retreat. So the mom left with her, and then I think she's around 3 years old or 4 years old at that time. So she said that she remembered all the relatives told her mom, you don't have future if you carry a girl with you like that. They gave her a term called tukis. Tukis is the Korean way of saying this very bad word in Chinese called zapzong, mean mixed blood. But mixed blood doesn't sound so bad. It is really a terrible term that they use to label her. So they kept telling the mom that there's no future if you're going to bring her with you. I think the mom is not married. So probably I think the mom had relationship with maybe a US soldier or what. So what happened, one day she said the mom came to her and said, tomorrow I'm going to bring you for a train ride. Wow, she was like, wow, very excited. So the mom prepared her the bag, food, a flask, and then the next morning bring her for a train ride. So in the train ride, the mom told her, I'm so sorry, I can't go with you, all right? So then the mom tell her, but your uncle will be waiting for you at the end of the station. So being a 3-4-year-old girl, what can you do, right? Okay, even though you don't want, all right, but probably at that time she don't have a choice, so she reluctantly probably accepted, and then she was alone in the train all the way until the last station, waiting for the uncle. And I think you must have guessed it. There's no uncle. So 4-year-old, you don't have that feeling if you got no kids, but I got kids, I will know the feeling, because I can see if I'm going to like ditch away my own child, okay? So that strong feeling. Today only we see a paper, a baby was abandoned near Sarawak. How sad, right? Okay. So what happened then is she was waiting for her uncle. The uncle didn't appear. So she was like waiting, and then where is this uncle and what will you do, right? So she came out from the station and start looking for an uncle, which never turned up. And she realized that there's nobody going to come for her. So she got very scared, and she don't know what to do. Also very cold, very hungry. So she ran to like a place like a bench at the back there and started hiding herself and started crying. So she opened up the bag because she's hungry, the food that the mom prepared. So she opened up with a hot towel. She took that and covered her face, and she started saying, Mama, Mama, where are you? All right. So that's how she started her life being abandoned, no parent. All right. So she said she'd been through a lot of abuse and torture, terrible life, living with no roof. She learned how to steal. She was being abused physically in many forms, with all the injury and scars still carried with her in the body. So, and that life goes on for many years until she hated her life and said that why even on earth that she is born. So she always hoped that the next day when she wake up, she will not wake up. That's how she wanted her life to be. She doesn't want to wake up and face the world. Until one day she got very, very sick and she collapsed. So people thought she's like almost dead. They dragged her and dumped her at the rubbish dump site. Then there's this one nurse who came to Korea for charity work. And her work is to save baby for adoption, because at that time there are a lot of cases like that, people abandon baby. So she said she's supposed to go back from the hospital to her orphanage. Don't know why she had that feeling of just stop at that rubbish dump. So she stopped and she walked in and she saw this lifeless body lying there. And she looked at her and said, she's probably going to be dead soon. And her age is so big, it's not like fit for her orphanage. So she doesn't want to save her, want to leave her to die. So she decided to like walk away. But then she said she felt her leg was so heavy that she can't move. Special, right? Okay. How does leg become so heavy, cannot move? I actually don't feel special. It's very normal. You just have to make your leg numb. I always feel that. Leg numb, then you can't even carry it. I'm just guessing what she's feeling. Okay? Because I'm a very scientific person. So even when people tell me that miracle, I think God does miracles still through a scientific way. That's me. So I probably imagine, okay, maybe she was numb, so she can't move. Then she said she can't move, and then she said she heard a voice telling the nurse that she's mine. So she thought that God must have spoken to her and said that this girl belongs to God. So she decided to save her. So she saved her and then bring her back and then start taking care of her in the orphanage. But she is, of course, rebellious. You know, you are accepted in orphanage doesn't mean you're going to receive all sort of love that you're expecting. So she said she never understand the meaning of this word called love. Until one day she saw a big size white guy came into the orphanage to adopt baby. So this man came in and go to every couch and hold up a baby and hug the baby, and as he hugged the baby, the man cried. She said, I never understand this feeling in my life. Why would a person have that emotion like crying when you hold a baby? So he carried each baby up and hug and cry and then move on until he saw her at one corner. So he went all the way to her, and the first thing he did to her is he touched her face. And she said, I don't know how to describe that feeling that she never had in her entire life. She wanted to tell the man, don't let go of the hand. She said that was her feeling. Don't let go. Just keep holding the hand on my face. But she never had that encounter in her life. So her natural reaction was she spit on the man's face. Poof, like that. Spit on his face and just hit his hand, and he ran off. And what happened was the man came back and said, I will adopt her. And that's how she was adopted into a family. And then after that, she was brought up. So now she's into those charity work, which is go out there to save people with no parent, all right? Now, I find it was a very touching story when I read this last year. So I thought, okay, maybe this time I share with this, because it's Chinese New Year soon. We always take things for granted because we have been living with perhaps parents around us or people to take care of us. And because of that thing is always there, sometimes we don't appreciate it so much. I'm sure all of us have raised our voice before. Even I do sometimes when I get frustrated. I talk to my mom, my voice raised. But sometimes if we stop and reflect back how other people go through this kind of thing, then we get better. So that's why the advertisement in the Chinese New Year ad is to make you think back about how great our parents' love are. So this time go back, hug your parent. You don't know how to start. You say, Mom, my lecturer say I have a project. You say, what is that? You just don't do anything my lecturer say. And then you hug, you hug her. Because when you hug her, then you feel awkward. When Chinese like that one, very awkward one, okay? So, but you hug her, then you say, I say one. See, I give a good excuse. Then you will feel that, wow, I did something really, really different that I've never done before in my life. Go and do it for this Chinese New Year. Hug her or hug him and then just say that my lecturer say one, I also don't know. How do you feel, mom? Strange, oh, strange, oh. You just say like that only lah. You jokingly say, but I tell you, your mom will be swung inside, okay? Because I'm also a parent. So sometimes when my son come and do stupid things to me, I think that he also feel awkward, okay? But maybe he wanted it, okay? And then I feel nice because I used to hug my son every day, okay? Until, you know, man and man. As you grow up, you feel like a man, all right? So he doesn't really hug me anymore, and I don't really hug him so often. So we start to be like a father and a child kind of character at home. So rarely we hug like those days, like every night hug one. Don't know how it just stopped one, you know. But on and off, I will go and hug him. He will come and hug me, which in deep down, I feel nice, okay? Okay, so that's a story to start with. Do you all have your smartphone? Oh, no smartphone, wow, congratulations, okay? All right, no smartphone, you got 30% higher chance to pass this exam, all right? Okay, I'm gonna go to Kahoot. Let's start with a simple test. Take out your smartphone, all right? So I'll tell you what to do, okay? Okay, if you go to kahoot.it, you just key in the number and then you just choose a nickname lah. You don't have to be serious and put your real name. All right, but you can put your real name if you want. Xiao Bai. Faster, Yes, yes, yes. Enter the number 8304360. Then press your nickname and join. Wow, you all must be very tired, man. Even type a name also, you type M, X, N, GG. Belum start already, GG. Tax is hard. Who is that, man? I really love you. Who is so hungry and wants steamboat? Looking at the choice of your name really excite me a lot. Any more? We have about 30 plus lah, so if not, I will start after a minute. Huh? Oh, pin. Oh, sorry. The pin. I just 8304360. Voila, all food, man. KFC lah, Maggi goreng lah. Sorry, in the screen one you cannot play because you are not live. Okay, one last minute, Then I'll start. If anyone still have difficulty coming in, let me know. I'm giving a test. Seriously, this is to test you before we start learning. Okay, can I start? Anyone still coming in? If you are coming in, I'll wait for you. If not, I'm going to start. Yeah, somebody chicken out. Yes. Don't worry, nobody will know who is you. It's supposed to be a secretive thing, all right? So you don't worry, nobody will know. Like, who know who is KFC, right? Okay, so I'll start, Okay. Question 1. Okay, choose the answer according to the color. Time's up, Wow. A lot of you got it wrong, Now, you know, in tax, we have this thing called public ruling. Public ruling is actually an interpretation by the Inland Revenue. They publish it in their website. You can look at it in haseo.gov.my. Now, public ruling is not a law. So you have a choice not to follow. If you don't want to follow public ruling, by all means, okay? You can challenge the government and then be prepared. If the government challenges you back, go to a court, which of course then it will be very costly, okay? So the answer is public ruling. So how many percent we have there? 7 out of 32. Wow. Never mind, never mind. It's only the first question. Don't be disappointed, okay? Wow, June. Tax is hard. Come on, you're doing so well. The question is up there. If you can't read, it's up there. Wow. 23 of you got it wrong. How many percent, Naren? 30. 32. Now, income remitted from overseas is not taxable if you're a non-resident. And there is a difference between not taxable and exempt. Because you can only exempt an income because it's taxable in the first place. Now, so you see, it's taxable but is exempted. And then not taxable. Not taxable means it's out of the scope already, okay? So there's a difference, which of course I think most of you have forgotten. Don't worry, we're going to cover back. I just want to let you see whether how much you remember, okay? Okay, let's try. Next one, come. We pay, not the pay. What do we pay? When we import goods. This should be easy. Okay, not bad, at least majority got it right. Hello, the 2 students there. There's no more GST, okay? Maybe you purposely want okay? Now, yeah, when you import, right, the tax that you pay is called sales tax. That's why sales tax are imposed on 2 categories of person. One is importer, the other one is manufacturer, okay? So if some of you are working in, you probably practical experience tells you that. Okay, next question. You click so fast, one got read or not? Oh? Okay, yeah, very good. By the way, what's a PLT? Anyone know? Private limited what? Limited liability what? So what's a P? What's a PLT? Perkongsian? Yeah, perkongsian what? Yeah, perkongsian liability terhad. It's actually because you know all the entities in Malaysia has to be labeled in bahasa, right? That's why we call Sendirian Berhad for company. So PLT is the abbreviation for Limited Liability Partnership, which is a taxable person or a chargeable person. Now, what do you mean by a chargeable person? Chargeable person means the law can impose tax on you. So we can ask that person to pay tax. You can ask the company to pay tax. You can ask this LLP to pay tax. You can ask individual to pay tax, but you cannot ask partnership to pay tax. Partnership is not a person. Okay, so if you remember that, that's good enough. All right. Wow, Joker is getting. The answering speed is slowing down. You start to think now. Ooh, okay, thank you. Yeah. By the way, the word basis year, right, is a technical term which refers to January to December. All right. So, and basis year and basis period is not the same thing. Okay. So it's just to see whether you still remember on that. Now let's just try the other one. Okay, that's good. All right, most of you got it right. I mean, if you look at the year end, then you know usually you have a 1 year accounting period. Okay, so next one. Wow, that's a scary response. Now, profits from selling properties may or may not subject to income tax. The answer is true is because you need to first determine if the gain from selling the property is what? What is the important thing that you must see? Whether it's revenue or capital in nature. Remember, no? Okay? And do you remember example badges of trade? Like we see how often you sell and buy the property. Or we look at the period of the ownership. How long do you hold the property before you sell? We look at intention. Like if you recall that, then you will know that everything will come down to whether it's revenue or capital. Okay? Now, for example, if you see property developer, the profit from property is always income tax because it's the business of a property developer to sell property. Okay? All right, just take note of that. Okay, next one. Wow. The other two don't want to answer. Cannot move, Why? Internet slow. What company you use? U Mobile, is it? Cellcom, wow. Change it because Cellcom too busy with the e-wallet now. More than 50%. Now you know why the passing rate is always like that, right? Okay, it's okay, first class. Okay, I'm going to let you try the next question before I look into this. Wow, not bad, huh, you? Wow. Okay, that's a good one. You purposely think of the opposite, is it? Now, Capital gain is always not taxable, okay? Always. Any exception? No. You cannot find even one exception in income tax, right? When the gain is capital in nature, and then you tax it under income tax. Not even one. Just don't have one, okay? But on the other hand, what about capital expenditure? Because we know that if capital gain we don't tax, you probably think that is capital expenditure also always not deductible? Now the answer is no. Because when it comes to expense, the government gave us a lot of, you can call it like incentive. They might want to encourage you to spend money on something. So they can give you special deduction. Deductions that even by right you're not supposed to claim, but they'll give it to you. If any one of you recall, example, Section 34, because Section 34 is a section that tells you that specific business deduction. Supposedly you cannot claim one, but they give it to you. I'll give you one example. To encourage social responsibility, a lot of employers are encouraged to do renovation of their business premise to support disabled workers. Now, renovation is capital cost. Yes, you're not supposed to claim, right? But Section 34 say, go ahead, claim. Now, so that's where exception comes in. So, if you're talking about capital gain, the answer is yes, always not taxable. But if you're talking about capital expenditure, the answer is maybe. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending. Okay, so that's why the mindset must be correct when you apply all these things. Okay, let's try another one. In the correct sequence, you must choose which is first, second, third, and fourth. If you're going to make arrangement, which is the first one, second one, third one, and fourth one? You just drag and put lah. First one, second one, third one, and fourth one. Okay, last 10 seconds. Faster, faster. Oh, so many wrong. Now, you know in TaxCom, we always begin with gross. And from gross to come to adjusted, we will do what? How do you adjust? We claim expenses. Gross to adjusted is expenses. Then from adjusted to statutory, what do you have? CA, all right? So if some of you don't recall, that means you have forgotten some. But we're going to do all that, but just at least you know that you've forgotten, okay? Now, then you will have all the statutory incomes of various sources. You add them up, you call them aggregate. Now, aggregate will come to total. Total comes to chargeable. We'll see this in our first chapter, okay? Just to remind you, so since a lot of you forgotten. Okay, next. Also in the sequence. Okay, time's up. All right. Now you know that I've told you this now from the adjusted to statutory income. Then in between we have the adjustment of allowances. Now, but of course, when you do the adjustment of allowances, there is this thing called balancing charge. Balancing charge occurs when what? Can anyone tell me? Balancing charge occurs when what? Wow. Now all confidence disappear already. Just now still okay one. After so long test, like tiam already. Anyone can say, why will there be a balancing charge? When you have what? You have disposal. Okay, when you have disposal, and then what? I know you have disposal. Disposal can result in balancing allowance, can also result in balancing charge. But why will there be a balancing charge? When what? Sorry? Gain on disposal. Is that right or wrong? Voila, don't be like that lah. Come on, okay? Is that right or wrong? When you made a gain on disposal, that's why you've got balancing charge. Correct? I should have put a poll for you all to poll, see whether it's right or wrong. The answer is not quite right. I mean, concept-wise is acceptable, but technicality is not right. Because when you say there's a gain on disposal, you're only explaining like a layman term. You're coming into something more technical. So you cannot tell people, oh, that's a gain on disposal. You have to say what? You have to say when the disposal value is what? Is more than the residual expenditure. Then you have a balancing charge. Which of course it translates to a gain. But the way you describe is so different, right? One person tells you, oh, you get a balancing charge because there's a gain on disposal. The other person tells you, you got a balancing charge because your disposal value more than RE. See the difference? It's more acceptable when you're clear, okay? Now, anyway, that's the right sequence. Okay, come, let's try. We are ending soon. Few more questions. This is a more technical question. Wow. Okay. Okay lah, still more than half. You know there's a limit to the deduction, right? So the max you can claim is 7%. Anyone know why it's 7? Okay, what is the other rate? 10. Excellent. Okay. So why is it 7? Individual. No, that's the wrong answer. Yes, that's the right answer. Okay. The reason is because it's not a company. Because the law says if you are a company, you get 10%. If you are not a company, you get 7. Now, not a company is not necessarily an individual. See the difference? Because when you expressed it, it comes with a lot of different meaning. Okay? But anyway, good that most of you remember. Okay, 2 more. 3 more. Wow, this is very fast. Yeah, okay. You know that there's a preferential tax rate for company. Instead of 24, you'll be taxed at 17. And of course, besides being a resident, the company must also be incorporated in Malaysia. Then there's a couple of other conditions, okay? So I think most of you are okay there. Okay, which donations claimable by individual only? I guess a lot of you say zakat or no, okay? The correct answer is medical equipment. There are actually two donations that's only permissible for individual. One is when you donate to healthcare center. The other one is when you donate for the benefit of the public disabled people. So this is the only one that they give it to individual. All right. Anyway, it's just something technical, just to see whether you remember. Okay, one last question. Whatever you study in this class is valid until which exam? I think that's a very important question. It tells you how long you can go. Wow. Your syllabus is valid until September, okay? So usually I put it in a very nice way. If you in case have decided not to take exam in June, then you can do it in September, okay? So, but after that, no more already. Now, my advice is don't delay this exam because the new budget has got a lot more changes again. And then when you start to change, because you know our government now is very confused and very panicked because you see the by-election, they never win. All right, they lose until now they're still losing. Yeah, so they are a streak of losing. So they're very panicked. So when they're panicked, right, they do all the wrong thing. For example, they keep U-turn on their policy. So they pass one law, after a while they realize that people are not happy, then they U-turn balik. So a lot of things are happening now in this, even in tax. So rules that they have passed in the previous budget, then in the new budget they change. So if you study now, then you take exam, let's say for example in December 2020, you get even more confused when you got to update with reversal of rules. So my advice is work very hard and pass this exam. Okay, so thank you for participating. How's your result? You can check yourself. We have 3 winners. Xiao Hei, Xiao Bai, don't know where, got Xiao Hei, all right? So got 10 out of 15. Now, none of you got anything closer, okay? All right. I can give you a general report of the accuracy if you want. Okay, now these are the general accuracy. So some are like 30%, 40% out of that. Okay, thank you. Now let's start. So you have, sigh already. Alright. You have a better perception of how the paper can be. Now whatever I've just done and given it to you just now is all from your text basic. And take note of this, everything in F6 are examinable in P6. And examiner always believe that when she examines the F6 topic, she is helping the student, which actually is not true, all right? Because examiner thought that, hey, that's F6 things, actually it makes student worse. Because a lot of you forgotten all the F6 stuff, all right? Now, but this is what I want to tell you. As part of the support, I will give you the video of the selected chapter of those F6 stuff that you need to know. For example, I will give you back a video on deduction, which is a very important thing. I'll give you back the videos on, for example, withholding tax, videos on tax admin, because these examiners love admin, love to test you on those due dates, what you must do, what happens if you don't do that kind of stuff, okay? Now, so I'll supply you on that so you can do it on your own, okay? Now, let's begin off with our, my chapter 1 is called a revision, okay? That's in page 2. Page 1 is basically telling you the format of the paper, which I don't intend to highlight anything special to you. The only thing I must highlight is this paper has no choice. That means you don't have option. You know, they are lazy lah, okay? They are lazy. They don't want to set, because when they set option, they have to set one more question. Then the marker got a mark variation, then the learning curve drops. So they come up with a very nice excuse and say, you know, when you work, you got no choice, right? So they take away the choice. All right? Is it true when you work, you got no choice? It's true? No, nowadays people got choice. They just dump the work. I don't like to do, resign. Okay? Nowadays, we got no choice. Okay? We always got choice. All right? But your exam got no choice. 4 questions. Okay, I'll begin off with a very important thing to discuss with you scope of charge, where most of you get it even wrong just now, okay? Now, our scope depends on person. And person is a technical term, which I've highlighted to you just now. Person is chargeable person. Now, chargeable person is basically an entity that is recognized by our tax law. Now, you see, for example, to understand the concept of entity, right? If you go to the bank, you want to open a bank account. So the bank will say, who wants to open? I want to open. So, okay, fine, give your IC. Now, you become their identity. You, an individual, become their identity. So you can open an account. Now, can I use my company to open bank account? Can, because we recognize such thing called company. Now, can I bring my cat and open a bank account? Because let's say I'm a very lonely man. So I have lots of money, but I don't trust human relationship. So I decided to trust my cat, because my cat seems to be more loyal to me than any one of you. Okay? So before I die, I thought of giving all my money, asset, and pass to my cat. Question is, how are you going to do that? To pass all my asset to a human, then that human will take and inherit the asset. But cat, how to inherit? Got this thing happen before in life? God, you say some other country happened. Now that's because their law has provision that recognize cat as a legal entity. Then can, all right? Now probably their law will recognize cat, but imagine you say I want to inherit to my cockroach, how? Correct? No? Then you got a problem with it. So that's why you must see what the law allows. Just like, for example, can gay get married in Malaysia? Cannot, because our law doesn't have that provision. So that's why once you have 2 men getting married or 2 women getting married, next time one person die and say that, oh, that person is my wife, how are you going to prove that? You cannot go to the court and give all the photograph and see, because he sleep with me, that's why he's my husband. It doesn't work in Malaysia, but other countries do have that kind of provision, right? So that's why you see it all up to the law. That's why our Malaysian law only recognize according to what they define. Now, which we know from our study. I'm going to write down a few that you're going to study in your P6. Now, we know individual is chargeable person. That's one. Now, you also know just now from the exercise, the test, company is also a chargeable person. And you distinguish them through the name. Sendirian Berhad, for example. Number 3, you also know that LLP is a chargeable person. What is LLP? Limited Liability Partnership. When the name is called PLT because it's in Malay. Okay? Now, you will also study trust in P6. So I'm just going to write down. Trust. Okay? You study trust. Now, that's it. P6, 4 types of person. We have more than that. For example, we can also have cooperative society, clubs, all right? But just that as far as our concern is, okay, we until trust, that's all. What is a trust? Now, let's just think about a very simple, practical scenario. You have a big heart. You have these houses that you want to donate to form an orphanage. Or let's say you want to start an orphanage, all right? The house is yours, is your name now, okay? Now, you can always say that, use my house and do orphanage. You can say that. Because it's your house, you can do anything you like, okay? Now, I'm going to ask you, what will happen after you die? It's your house. What will happen after you die? Now, your house will not belong to you once you've passed away. So the government will follow our law, decide what to do with the house. Example, if you leave a will, then your house can transfer to your beneficiary. If there's no will, then they'll follow. Example, if you're Muslim, you have the Sharia law. If you're non-Muslim, you follow the Distribution Act. Then they say, okay, your wife will get partial, your son will get partial, and so on. So then the next question is, you have left the house to be an orphanage. But when you die, right, let's say your son take the house. Your son has no big heart like you. Your son decided to chase away all the orphan and take the house and sell. Then how? So what can I do to preserve my big heart of doing charity, of doing the orphanage, by having the house to be there? What can I do? Now then you have to fix it to an entity that is perpetual. For example, you say, can I transfer the house into a company and then the house belongs to a company and hold it there? Can. You can do that. But when you transfer into a company, then you will have what? You have shareholders, you have directors, people can sell off the shares, they can change directors, then the same problem will come back. Now, so that's why usually what people will do with charity is they form a trust. They say, now I will form a trust. It's just a concept that in this trust, this is the purpose. Then I will just use somebody's name to hold the asset. That's it. To hold the asset. And that asset is meant for this purpose. Now, most charity, for example, even this land that we are on, it belongs to those early days when the churches come to Malaysia and they have put it in the trust. And that's it. It will always be there. All right? Now, so this is an example of trust. So which we will cover. All right? We'll cover as part of the syllabus. Now, there are 4 types of person. Okay, the law made it very clear. Now, what is not a person is a partnership. So you cannot tax partnership because it's not recognized by the tax law. Okay? The rest all you can tax. You can tax individual, you can tax company, you can tax LLP, you can tax trust. Now, when you want to tax a person, then you have to start bringing in questions like, for example, is the person resident or not resident? Does resident status affect my tax? For example, tax rate got different or not if I'm a resident or not resident? Now, then you have to see what does the law provide. Now, that's where it goes on to the next step. So that's why you then have to learn that in the future, how do I know LLP is resident or not? How do I know trust is resident or not? I ask you a question. Company, how do you know is a resident? Anyone remember? The clue is you look at what? Board of Directors Meeting. Remember? Board of Directors Meeting, which in tax law, the term is called management and control. All right? So you look at the place where the company had Board of Directors Meeting to decide the company's resident status. Now, then you see, if you're LLP, right, how do you determine the status? Now, then you cannot use words like just now, Board of Director, because I'm not a company. Where on earth I'm going to find directors, right? Now, that's why the law must be tweaked so that it will apply into the situations more accurately. So this is what you have to see. Now, we'll learn all that in the future. I'll just give you concept. Concept. Today is concept, so just be relaxed. Your face is not very relaxed now. Okay, I feel you pressured me. Okay, I'm very scared. All right. Now, so let's go on. Okay, so person can be resident or non-resident, which we say in the future we're going to learn again how to determine. But I want you to see this. Okay, if you are resident person, right, now I will only look at these 2. The first one is resident company. Okay, they are resident company that they involve in specialized industry. All right, resident company, specialized industry. Okay, I'll just dictate, you write down. There are 4 industry specialized. 4. Banking. Okay, banking. Insurance. Airline. Shipping. Again, for banking, insurance, airline, shipping. Now that's the 4 industry, okay? Now, so if you just try to imagine, we are talking about example, Public Bank Berhad, okay? Air Asia Berhad, for example, all right? So these are those kind of companies that fall into that. Now, they are a bit special because the law adopt a worldwide scope on their income. Okay, what's a worldwide scope? What's a worldwide scope? The scope decides how we tax you. So we tax you on the world scope, meaning all your income. I don't care where you made it, all right? It will all be taxable. So basically, if your income is Malaysia derived, or if your income is foreign derived, Malaysia derived or foreign derived income, we are talking about income, they are all taxable. Okay, they are all taxable. Now you don't need to write these, later I'll give you an example, but I just want to imagine. So you imagine if Public Bank Berhad, okay, they expand to Vietnam. So let's say they come up with Public Bank Vietnam Limited, which is their wholly owned subsidiary. So in Vietnam, they have their operation, and now what happened is in Vietnam, they make a lot of profit, okay? So these profits that they made in Vietnam, now let's just call this A, the amount is A. Now question is, because this is a bank, so these profits that Public Bank Vietnam Limited made in Vietnam, will it be taxed in Malaysia? What is your answer? Yes or no? Will it be taxed in Malaysia? A. Yes. Yes. Because it's a bank, right? Because it's a worldwide scope, right? Okay. Now the answer is no. Because Public Bank Berhad is a company in Malaysia. Public Bank Vietnam Limited is another company. It belongs to 2 entities. You cannot claim that Vietnam company is also the Malaysian company, correct or not? In law, it's 2 companies. That's why you call that as a subsidiary. Now, I know in substance you consolidate, but from the eyes of the law, this is a totally different person. This is person 2. This is person 1. So you cannot mix the profit of Vietnam with the Malaysia. It's different company. Now, in fact, how do you recognize the income from Public Bank Vietnam? In the hands of Public Bank Berhad, how would the income from Vietnam come to you? In the form of, just imagine you are holding them as a subsidiary. That means you hold the share of a company. Yes, so the income actually comes in the form of dividend. So this company will have to pay you dividend. Can you see or not? Of course, you say accounts-wise is a different story. Accounts, you consolidate the result because they belong to your subsidiary. Now, but in tax-wise, we notice this is a different person. That's why the source of income is the dividend. So what does it mean by when we say worldwide scope? Now, example, it will be worldwide scope if you're there not as a subsidiary but as a branch. Because if you start a branch is part of yourself. It's an extension. But if you go there and start a subsidiary, it's a different entity. Can you see now? So that's why it makes a lot of difference. So it's which one are you? All right. Now we'll come to that shortly. After that, I'll show you an exam question. Now, so if you fall under all other person, okay, all others, that's not under specialized industry. All right. If you fall into the all other categories, okay, then this is how your scope being applied. Income that is Malaysia derived is taxable. Okay, when income is foreign derived, now you have to ask yourself whether the income is brought back to our country. Now if you bring back, we use a remitted. If you don't bring back, then it's not remitted. Okay, so if the income is not remitted, you leave it overseas. You know, the money is just in account overseas, just don't take back. Okay, now will not tax it. The income is not taxable. Okay. If it's remitted, right, then it becomes taxable. Okay, it's taxable. But I told you, right, although it's taxable, but the law also say it will be tax exempt. Okay. What if you are a non-resident? Okay, if you are non-resident, when income is Malaysia derived, it's taxable. If the income is foreign derived, it will be not taxable. Now, the exemption law has been there since 1998. You know, until today, it's more than 20 years already, okay? That exemption, if some of you remember those days, I've told you the history before in the low level. It was introduced because that time there was the Asian economic crisis. In 1998, economy really goes so bad until US dollar ringgit crash. That the exchange rate to US dollar was 4 point something. You say nothing special because today is also like that. All right. So imagine 20 years later we are still like that. So that time, imagine that time, foreign income you bring back, you have to pay tax on. So it became a very pleasant surprise to a lot of people when the government do a sudden announcement and say, hey, come, bring back your money, it's tax exempt. So it creates this knee-jerk reaction that people just want to bring back. So they want to bring back the money. It's just like now, you know, like last year, the government gave this special disclosure, SPV, the special voluntary disclosure, I forgot the term, that you say, government say, you just disclose on good faith, we accept, we charge you very low penalty. And everybody got a knee-jerk reaction and they go and do this, okay? Now, that's the same thing. So, at that point, people don't know how long will the exemption last. Imagine, the government may just give you exemption for 2 years. So, people just bring back. But how long did it last? It lasted until today. Because economy has never got better, all right? It's still the same, okay? Now, but you never know, 5 years down the road, you know, who knows, right? Ringgit will strengthen against Sing dollar, and now Ringgit is to Sing dollar is 1 ringgit to 2 Sing dollar next time. Wow, you never know, right? Huh? Okay. Then the government say that we don't need this exemption. Let's tax the Malaysian now. Then they will remove this. Now that's a what-if scenario. Now, so when we study tax, we understand that the purpose of knowing the knowledge, all that, is because we need it for our tax advantage. Now, if one day, don't need to change, there's no more exemption, and you really have lots of income overseas. So what will be the advantage you're going to have if you want to bring the money back and you don't want to pay tax is you switch your status. Because if you are a resident, the income is taxable, right? But if you become a non-resident, your income is not taxable. Then you switch your resident status, then you can freely bring the money back and you don't have to pay tax. But then you must see whether it's worth to do all that or not, but that's an option. Because this is how you understand the law, you take it for your advantage, okay? Now, things like that. Okay, I know a lot of you, like at this stage perhaps, you are still struggling with, does it matter? When you say something is not taxable, something is taxable but tax exempt, at the end of the day, got different in the effects or not? Now, overall different is you don't pay tax. Both of you don't pay tax. So you might feel like there's no difference since I don't pay tax also, right? But there will be lots of differences when you start going through the detail. Now, I give you an example, just an example for you to see how important it is for us to differentiate all that. Don't worry about all that. We'll learn in the future one. Okay, don't need to copy, but just say, no wonder it's so important. All right. Now, if I'm a company, for example, let's say A. Sendrian Berhad. All right. Now, I have an overseas investment. Okay, I have an overseas investment. And this overseas investment is giving me, I'm going to convert it to ringgit, let's say 5 million. All right? Now, the money is out there. I didn't bring back. Okay? On account, if you say this is your money, of course, it will be reflected in all your profit. Account, yes. But now we are looking at the tax consequences. All right? Now, if now the company decide, for example, the company decide they want to give out some dividend to their shareholder. Now, in the future, you will learn that dividend can come in many forms. So you have many status, all right? Now, one kind of dividend is called a tax-exempt dividend. Okay? One kind of dividend is called tax-exempt dividend. How do you even get tax-exempt dividend? That's the question. How do you get tax-exempt dividend? How do you pay a dividend that in tax the status is called tax-exempt? Now, the requirement is this. You must have tax-exempt income credit. Okay? Now, don't need to bother. It's just a requirement. The government say if you want to pay tax-exempt dividend, you must have tax-exempt income credit. Now, that's the word. Tax-exempt income credit. Okay, how do you get the credit? Now, one way of getting credit is when you have exemption of income. So, if you take this 5 million, you bring back to Malaysia. You bring back. Now, then in our law, we say the foreign income that you brought back is now taxable, but is exempted. Now, that allows you to credit the 5 million into this tax-exempt income account. Now, then you can use this money and pay tax-exempt dividend. So the status matters, okay? Now, you say, if I don't do that, now if you don't do that, then on paper, you will never have this tax-exempt income credit. Then you cannot pay tax-exempt dividend. You can pay any other dividend, but not this dividend, because on paper, you don't have that value with you. Can you see now? Now, so it matters, you see, because of all these things that we are doing. Now, then think about this and see. So let's say, for example, if what I have now in overseas is I dispose a land. Now, if I dispose a land, for example, if I dispose a land, and I make a gain of 2 million, all right? Now, let's say the balance 4 million is my cost. So in total, I have 6 million with me. I take the money back. Now, when you take the money back, what is that to you? Is it an income or not? If you sell a piece of land that you've invested overseas for a very long period of time, when you take the 6 million back, is that an income? That's my question. Do you recognize this as an income? Now then must come back to tax already. What's an income? Just now we answer what? What's an income? Income must be revenue gain. Now, what is your revenue gain here? Nothing. You don't have a revenue gain. You're selling all the piece of land and you're having a capital gain, and the 4 million is actually the capital that you have on the land. So when you bring back, you're going to ask, so how do we have this? You're not going to tax this at all because it's a capital gain. Now then, what is your tax-exempt income credit? You still don't have a credit. So it matters, you see, because when you want to decide what you want to do with all that, then you must see legally how you do it. All right? So it makes a lot of differences when you want to plan transaction. All right? Now, so all that we will go through bit by bit. In the future, we will see. All right? Then we'll see how we're going to understand and how we're going to utilize all that. Now, okay, back to this. So this explains the scope. So do remember, it makes a difference if you say taxable but exempted and not taxable. Now go to page 3. Now this is the highlight to you. If I have ABC Bank, okay, if I have ABC Bank, and if ABC Bank decided to go to Hong Kong and start ABC Hong Kong Limited, this is a subsidy. Now I'm going to use color code so you can differentiate. So in the eyes of the law, there are two different entities. It's company 1 and company 2. This is company 1. This is company 2. Correct or not? They're different entities. So you cannot claim that the profit of Hong Kong and the profit of Malaysia is the same profit. Cannot. Of course, accounting-wise, you know it is because they are subsidy, you consolidate. But from tax-wise, legal-wise, they are not. So whatever profits you make in Hong Kong has nothing to do with Malaysia because it's different company. Now, on the other hand, if let's say, for example, they decided to go to Mauritius and set up a branch. Now, that branch is still part of Malaysia because it's an extension, all right? Branch is an extension. Now, so when you say your branch is in Mauritius, then technically you will see that most likely this is a business activity in Mauritius. Then you will say that then by right the profit should be taxed in Mauritius. But because you are a bank, then you realize that even the profit that you have in Mauritius, this profit, will also be taxed in Malaysia. Okay? It will also be subject to Malaysian tax. Now, the basis for that is because we are using a worldwide scope. Because the law says that as long as you're in banking, will tax you no matter where you make the money. So it's called wherever derived basis. Okay? Now, I think some of you will start asking a question that, wow, if like that, then if I pay tax in Mauritius, then I pay tax in Malaysia again. Is it going to be like that? Yes. But we do have mechanism to smooth out this kind of double taxation problem. That means there are mechanisms that tells you because you suffered foreign tax, now what will happen when the Malaysian government tax you again? But we'll see all that in the future, okay? Now, but this is just to highlight to you, it made a lot of difference if you set up a branch or if you go through a subsidy. A lot of difference, okay? Now, the source of income makes so much difference now because if you go through a subsidy, the income comes in the form of dividend, right? But if you do a branch, it will still be part of your business, okay? Now, this is one, okay? But give another example. Now, if let's say you have Malaysia, a restaurant, all right, called Restaurant Satay Power, okay? Now, and then you decided to go to Taiwan and set up a branch. Now, it is a branch. It is an extension of the same company. Okay? But question is, if this branch make profit, then how? Will it be taxed in Malaysia or not? Now, it's not that straightforward, but it's to make it more simplified to get an idea that if you have decided or concluded that this branch in Taiwan, the income is purely foreign derived. It's not Malaysian source. It belongs to Taiwan source. Let's say you have decided on that, okay? Now, then you realize that this will be if we've concluded that this is a foreign Wait, what is that? What just came up? It's time for a break soon, okay? Anyway, it's almost 8. I'm going to give you a break, okay? Why don't you take a break? Okay, let's just take a short break. I don't know what happened, okay? My computer is very old, yes, 5-year-old already, but I ordered a new computer with a better system. Hopefully will come after Chinese New Year, okay? So that we don't have this lagging problem. Yeah, solved already. But I say a break, right? Yeah, we take a break, okay? All right. Okay, so if the restaurant, we concluded that income is foreign derived, then this profit that the restaurant derive in their activities in Taiwan will not be taxed in Malaysia. Now, simply because you don't fall under a worldwide scope. So that there is a distinction between whether you are worldwide scope or you are not a worldwide scope, okay? Now, because of this kind of issue, so it does matter whether you want to start, for example, a business, especially if you are from overseas. Would you want to do it through a subsidy? Now we reverse the situation. Do you want to be, let's say a foreigner want to come to Malaysia and invest. So do you want to do it through a subsidy? Or do you want to come here and start a branch? Now, of course, it's not only tax implication. There are a lot more other implications, like implication of the law. Sometimes the government may not allow that because they don't allow you to have a branch because of licensing. You do have to have a company, that kind of requirement. But just from tax perspective, will it be different, and in what way that it will be different? If let's say a foreign company called XYZ Limited, they are very keen to come to Malaysia for a business. And they have two options. Either they start a subsidy or they start a branch. All right? Now I'm going to put down a few issues here, for example, like expense deduction. Because when you start carrying on business activity, you do need to recognize how you're going to do your tax com. Now then you have issues about expense deduction. Now let me just discuss verbally. As far as deduction laws are concerned, do you remember which section talks about deduction law again? The basic one, section 33, okay? Now, section 33 is the general deduction principles that we have. Any idea what this 33 tells us? You know, if you want to claim an expense, it must be what? Expense usually has to be? Yeah, the wholly and exclusively incurred in the production of gross income from that source, all right? So now we're going to see all that in the future. Now, my question is, if you start a business, okay? If you start a business, now business is actually a source of income. Make sense, huh? It's a source of income, all right? Now, whether you start the business through a subsidy or you start a business through a branch, ultimately the difference is who is the one that owns the business. So if you start a subsidy, then you probably will have, now I'm just going to call these like XYZ and Ramberhart, that's a new entity. And the business will park under XYZ and Ramberhart. But if you say you're going to start a branch, then you're going to have XYZ Limited remain as this foreign company. But the foreign company will directly then have the business that you will do in Malaysia. So eventually it will still be business, and they will still have to claim deduction when they want to declare tax, right? Now, my question is, do you think it makes a difference when it comes to expense deduction? If you are doing it through a subsidy, Malaysian subsidy, or you're doing it through a branch, will it make any difference? Now, how do you know whether it makes any difference? Then you just ask yourself, like, those days when you study a tax, right? Do you recall anything that you studied that when it comes to expense deduction, you have to differentiate whether it's a subsidy or it's a branch? Is there anything like that? No, right? It's not like something in your mind, correct? So it appears to us that deduction of expenses is nothing to do with who owns the business. You only claim expense deduction so long that you fulfill the deduction principle, which talks about the wholly exclusive test. So then you ask me, will it be any different if you start a subsidy or branch? Actually, it doesn't make much difference in terms of expense deduction. So probably the answer is going to be the same as it, no different. All right? Now, in what way you believe that tax rate will be different? If this is a Sdn Bhd and this is XYZ Limited, you should know. Just now we start with a simple test and I gave you some hint. In what way that it may be different? The tax rate, will it be different? Different in what way? That if you are XYZ Limited, your tax rate will definitely be the 24%. But if you say you're a Sdn Bhd, you may have a possibility of enjoying a lower tax rate, right? Now see, it made a difference. Now, and that difference makes a lot of difference, of course, to the owner, because you just imagine 17% and 24% is a 7% difference. So that 7% difference will translate to quite a big sum of saving. But of course, you know that 17% is restricted to $500,000, okay? Now, but there is still a difference. Now, what about, for example, if we talk about withholding taxes? Okay, why will there be withholding taxes? Normally, withholding taxes apply when we do what? When we make payment to non-resident, right? All right? Now, so why would there be a withholding tax issue coming in? Now, that's because you're talking about XYZ Limited, that they may set up a local subsidy, and it's quite normal, right, for a group to have what? Usually group, what will they do? For example, they may have intergroup charges, correct or not? I might provide you some accounting service, and in return, you have to pay me a fee. Now, so now when you have payment from your Malaysian subsidy to this overseas company, now then you have to start questioning into, well, will there be a need of withholding taxes? So if I do it in the form of subsidy or a branch. Now then the next thing is the repatriation of profit. That is, how will the profit from this Malaysian subsidy go back to XYZ? Likewise, how will this go back to XYZ? Now this is very general, okay? So if you go to page 4, now that is the past year, and it's a 16 marks requirement, so it's actually quite heavy, right? All right, 16 marks requirement. Now the question used to be a longer question because there are other parts, but I only extract the one that's relevant to us here. So this is a 16 marks requirement that, okay, let's just read the short story, the description. It says that, okay, question has been longer, but I cut it short. I modify a bit to cut it short. I say that Foreign Co. is incorporated outside Malaysia, but has a plan to expand its sales network to Malaysia. Now, then it's seeking tax advice whether to locally incorporated a wholly owned subsidiary with an issued capital of 1 million. Now, I think you know that the new Companies Act regime has already take away things like all these paid up ordinary share and stuff like that, okay? But unfortunately, Malaysia is a country that most departments don't talk to each other. That means you expect that like the law will change, Companies Act side change, but the tax side will not change. Then they will still use the outdated term. That's why we are still into things like paid up ordinary share capital. So we still use terms like that, which legally in our Companies Act, it doesn't exist anymore, you know, but the tax side is still there. So that's where my problem comes in. So sometimes you're in practice and you say, hey, Mr. Lau, how come you still use term like that? Well, I don't have a choice. I follow exam, okay? My duty is to help you for exam only, not for work, okay? So don't ask me work question. I don't know, okay? All right. Now, okay, back to this. So the part here is they say they want to have a 1 million. Now, why would examiner purposely put 1 million? Why not she put 3 million? You know, because the examiner is trying to test whether you see the difference between a small co and not a small co, you see. Because if you're going to come here and set up a company with only 1 million, you become SME. The term we normally use is called SME, which is not a very accurate term. Because SME stands for small, medium enterprise, while we actually refer to a small company. But it's okay lah, they've been using the term all the time, okay? Now, so either you go through a company or you operate it through a branch, okay? Now, examiner gave us very guided requirement of what she wants. So she asked you, talk about, explain to foreign code the tax treatment, comparative tax treatment. So you're supposed to give two comparisons. If you are treating it as a branch or as a Malaysian incorporated company, Malaysian, not a foreign company, Malaysian company. So it's definitely a Sdn Bhd, okay? And you're supposed to make reference to all this. So the examiner gave you like 5 issues, 5 things. So if you start breaking it down, the marks is actually not too bad, right? Because 5 things, 16 marks. It's on average like 3 marks per point. So 3 times 5 is about 15 marks. Then you have two different treatment to explain. So it's like very little marks in each part. Okay. Now number 1, they say, what about deduction of business expense? That's 1. Okay, number 2, what about claiming capital allowances on those assets that you use them in the operation? Now, examiner purposely highlight including small value asset. Now, anyone remember small value assets are assets that the cost does not exceed how much? 1,003, right? Okay, now I just roughly remind you, we'll come to this next time. Now, you know it's maximum 1,003 per unit, and there is what? There's a restriction on how much you can claim, right? How much can you claim? You can claim the 100% CA, but up to maximum 13,000 a year. Okay? Now it's quite easy, but because it's 1,003, 13,000. So it's based on the same amount of 1,313. Now you have a restriction of 13,000 a year, all right? Except who will not have that restriction? SME, exactly. So you see, the whole line of the questions, the idea of the examiner is she's trying to see whether you know how to differentiate SME and not SME. Because SME has unlimited claim. But if you're not SME, then you have a problem. You have a limit in the claim. So this is to go on with the whole idea of being SME. Whether you have a restriction or no restriction. So SME has unlimited claim. Now, then it goes on with how do you apply the withholding tax provision when you pay interest and technical fee. Now, because I didn't give you the whole question, but you can more or less imagine, why would you be paying interest to foreign co? What is the reason for you to pay interest? You must have got a loan, foreign co. Now, if this is foreign co, if this is a subsidy, the idea is foreign co must have given you a loan. In return, you have to what? Pay interest. And foreign co is a non-resident overseas what? So when you have a non-resident overseas, when you make interest payment to a non-resident, the next question is, will there be withholding tax? Now, this is not a withholding tax question. It's only a flavor of withholding tax that they touch a bit on withholding tax. So you don't have to like go on and explain like one whole long page of withholding tax thing. So it's just a rough idea. Do you think that there will be withholding tax when you make interest payment? Now, and the concept here is they're testing you. If you set up a branch, now what is the difference if, let's say, foreign code is to set up a branch? Now, it will come to a basic understanding. Can you lend money to your branch? Okay, if you cannot see this, you go to public bank, you open one bank account, you put 50,000 inside. Then you go to Hong Leong Bank, you open one more account. Then you say, I will loan my Hong Leong, the public bank money to Hong Leong Bank. So you transfer public bank 10,000 to Hong Leong Bank. You say, I loan from my public bank account to my Hong Leong Bank account. So I give myself a loan of 10,000. Does it make sense? Why not? You see, it's my money anyway. Both accounts also is my money. So it doesn't really matter where my money is. It's all my money. So you don't really do that. So if I ask you, if you go to Hong Kong and open a bank account, then you transfer your money to Hong Kong, do you call yourself give a loan to Hong Kong? It's still your money, right? Now, if you think along this way, actually, does it make sense to say that foreign code is giving a loan to a branch? Actually, it's not. There's no loan because it's you. You don't give loan to yourself. It's the same entity. Now, so that's why examiner is actually testing whether you see that. So if you see that, say, there's no loan. If there's no loan, then there's no question of interest. How do you give rise to interest when there's no loan in the first place? So the precedent of argument is very important. So you're going to say, because this is not a loan, there shouldn't even be interest. And when there is no interest, there shouldn't even be argument of withholding tax. Now, that's the whole issue that we see here. Then the next thing is, how do you give back profit? Now, again, back to questions is, if you have a subsidy, how do you give back profit? We know that, right? Through dividend. Now, but we are not just looking at, just say that, I give a profit through dividend. So let's just be a bit more mature in the answer. If you want to give dividend back to the company, what would you need to give dividend? To pay dividend, what must you have? The condition. Example, you must have? Must have what? To pay dividend, you must have? I'm asking law now, I'm not asking tax now. To pay dividend, you must have? Yeah, you must have profit. You must have profit, all right? Can you have profit if you have not even finished your first year? Okay, I just relate example. This is really my friend came to me and asked for an advice. He said he's going to get a very huge commission, about 1 million. He asked me what is the best way for him to reduce his tax, because he's going to receive a commission as an agent, personally 1 million. You know, if you get 1 million, your tax rate becomes very high, right? So he said, is there a way you can reduce? I said, can reduce. One way is what? You set up a company, then you take the profit into the company, because when the profit goes into a company, comparatively, a tax rate is lower. Now, but now there is a problem. You imagine if 1 million come into my bank account today, 1 million, I bank in the check, public bank, pop 1 million. Can you use the cash tomorrow? Huh? Cannot. Okay, can you use the cash 3 days later? Is it your money? Can you use it? Why not? Wow, why you all got money in the bank account, cannot use one? Okay, of course you can use, it's your money, what? Can you say no? But of course you must keep enough to pay taxes only, right? You can use your money freely. Your salary go in, you cannot use one. Wow, I feel very sad for you, man. Salary come in, you see only. Wow. This year got bonus, but cannot use it. Why? Cannot use, okay? So it's my money, I can use. Now, but think about this. If the money goes into the company, all right, the money goes into the company. Now the money belongs to the company. But you want to use the money in the company. How are you going to use it? Okay, you can pay yourself salary, but if you pay yourself salary, then you get back to your tax personally again. All right? Now, so if you don't pay yourself salary, what can you pay to yourself? Then next time you're going to pay income tax for the company, you're going to pay personal tax for yourself. Now, so you want to take the money out from the company. You need to find ways. Now, if you don't want to find difficult way, then easier way is the company can just pay you dividend, no? Which is, to you, is tax exempt, right? But question is, when must you pay, when can you start paying the dividend? You just incorporated the company. Your account have not even done. How to pay dividend? You don't even have profit. So you have to wait. So you got to be patient. And that's a very difficult thing, to see the money and cannot use. Correct or not? So there's a lot of implications. So sometimes we look at it, oh, sounds like, just pay dividend. But if you look at the whole situation, there's a lot of things to take into account. Okay? Now, so back to this. So as a subsidy, if you want to pay back the profit to foreign co, yes, you can pay dividend, but you have to wait because you need to have profit. And if this is the first year, unlikely you're going to pay in first year. Can you see or not? Now, so these are the issues that we are saying. But if you're a branch, you don't have an issue, right? Because it's already your money. You can take it in whatever way you prefer, okay? Now, so this is the questions the examiner tested. 16 mark. This is how the examiner wrote the answer, all right? So can I just leave it for you to read, okay? But I want to just highlight to show you, for example, when it comes to deduction of business expense, examiners say, business expenses is wholly exclusively incurred for production of the gross income and not prohibited attributable to the branch are tax deductible. Now, business expenses that's wholly exclusively incurred, all right, of the subsidy are tax deductible. Now, is this word subsidy and this word branch critical? Critical or not? Now, the subsidy you write, don't write is not critical. I want to explain to you why, okay? Let's say you say, I never write the word subsidy. I don't have an issue if you don't write subsidy. But I have an issue if you don't write the word branch. Now, why? Okay, think about this. If you are just a subsidy stand alone on itself, just one subsidy, one business. Yeah, one subsidy, one business. When I say expense, whose expense can it be? You don't get my question, okay? If you only have one company with one business, when I say the expense, then whose expense can it be? The company in the business, no one else, right? Now, if you, let's say you only have one son at home, you tapao dinner, it will be so funny for me to ask you, tapao for who? You only have one son. You tapao for the son. Who else can say no? But if you got 5 children at home, you say, I tapao dinner. Is it important to say whose dinner? Because it points to the accuracy of what you're referring to. Now, so you see, if you never tell me this is the subsidy, I don't mind, because you cannot mix up, because that's the only one. But now you see, foreign co and a branch, if you say expense, now I have a big question mark here. Whose expense? The foreign co, which can be the company that can cover anywhere they like, or only the expense of the branch in Malaysia? If you never say, how do I know? So imagine if you write the answer, right? You write the answer, you just tell me that expenses wholly, exclusively incurred for production of income will be deductible. You never highlight the word the branch. Is the answer technically right? Wrong? Because the clarity is not there. I don't know what expense that you're actually referring to. Now, so the one word is so critical, right? Now, that's why you say, if you say, I sit down, I go through past year, I do a lot of work. Now, problem is when you go through past year, do you look at that that word and really understand why was that word being used in the answer. If you don't go to that extent, actually you don't understand the question. But after I explain to you, you see the idea, right? Oh, yeah, never think of that in that way. So I hope that you understand this is one of a very important attributable to the branch. It's a very important phrase to justify the answer is correct. Now, of course, the rest of the word is still important, like wholly, exclusively incurred, not prohibited. These are part of the point. So in ATX or P6, usually examiner give you more marks than allocated. That means if the question 16 marks, all the marks add up, right, can even come to 21. So that you can get more than maximum. If you're so good, you can get so many marks, okay? But of course, examiner will limit. Now, for example, is this word not prohibited important? What is the message the examiner is trying to highlight to you? Now, when examiner tells you an expense that is wholly exclusively incurred, she's referring to 33. But why in brackets she said not prohibited? Because she's referring to section 39. Because in section 39, it tells us about expenses that you cannot claim. So if your expenses are prohibited, actually you cannot deduct. So you see, in that one short answer, actually there's a couple of things the examiner is testing. Or she's actually demonstrating her knowledge. Now, you may not write everything, but I'm telling you why that's an important point, okay? Okay, so that's one part. Now, carry on. Claiming of CA, example. Okay. All assets, to the extent they constitute qualifying plant expenditure. Now, is this phrase important? Now, if you take away this line and just say asset, can your answer stand? Cannot work. Because not all asset qualify CA. Example, intangible asset, they are asset, right? If you got development costs, they are asset. Can you claim CA? Of course, no one. If you got a shop lot, the shop lot, it's a building, but it may not have any allowances because it's not industrial building. So not all assets can claim CA. But those that you claim CA definitely are asset. That's why the keyword is not the word asset. The keyword is the word they are qualifying plant expenditure. That's why the word is qualifying. Now, so when you have qualifying plant machinery, it must be qualifying plant machinery. Now then, of course, you know to claim CA, right? You have to be used in the business. Okay? Now that's a very important requirement, use. Now, of course, you know that there are a lot other things. For example, it's not only using. You know, to claim CA, you must also be what? There are basically 3 key requirements for claiming of CA. You must use it, you must also be owner, you must incur, correct or not? Owner, incurred, and use it. Now, but you say, but examiner answer don't have. Don't have doesn't mean it's not right. You can still write what? You can still say that, okay, you must be the owner of the asset at the end of the year. That's acceptable point. That's why we need marker to mark your answer. We cannot use robot to mark your answer. Because marker has intellectual to say, this answer is acceptable. Because it's still a point there, although examiner didn't include it, okay? Now, but using in the business is one thing. Again, it must be attributable to the branch. Why is that important? Because remember I've said you are having two business presence now. If you have an asset that you use it here, you can't claim CA, right? But if you have the machine that you use it here, then yes. So question is, are you differentiating that for me or not, to see that there is a difference? So this is a very important phrase. So if examiner want to be really, really strict, examiner will say, so long you don't mention attributable to the branch, the whole answer is wrong. If she's very strict, and will the examiner be strict? Well, depends. So occasionally you see examiner will get a bit strict, okay? Especially when she really find cannot, that's unacceptable. Which to me, I think she's not wrong, you know, because if that phrase attributable to branch was not mentioned, that means you never grasp the concept. You don't even see the difference. Now, so that's how important one or two phrases you must use in the exam, okay? Now, of course, then it goes on. The examiner talk about small value asset. That's why this is where the small value asset comes in. Now, just highlight these now, I'll move on already. They say, as regard to small value asset, the branch can claim 100% CA, 100% CA. Now, up to 13,000, okay, up to 13,000. Now, so often in the exam, students just stop at the 13,000 and never say is in a year of assessment, which is very critical because it's every year 13,000. If you just say that you can claim up to 13,000, you full stop. Do you mean the whole lifetime of the company only can claim 13,000? So that's a very important phrase to indicate the duration. Is every year of assessment. Cannot miss one. You miss the answer, cannot stand on it. Okay, but on the other side, right, this is where you're going to have a sub-C. Okay, the Malaysian sub-C. Now, because the word Malaysian is given in the question, so usually marks will not be given. Okay, but the phrase resident is important. Why? Because to qualify SME status, we must look at incorporated in Malaysia, resident company, then you look at the paid up ordinary share. Now, so resident is a point. If you say, oh, I didn't say resident, then you miss the point. If you say, you probably got a half mark there, okay? Now, then they also go on and says that as well as a small and medium company. So she actually used the phrase SME, right? But she actually put in bracket what is SME. She said that SME here means the capital must be less than 2.5 million, which is a wrong phrase, okay? Which is a wrong phrase, because you cannot say less than, but you must say not exceeding. Because less than means 2.5 million not included. So it's wrong, okay? It's wrong. Now, you say, wow, examiner answer also wrong. What's so strange? We are all human. So please don't say the examiner must be perfect. I also make mistakes all the time. So please accept with an open heart. All right? Don't go and say, oh, she's wrong, she's useless, stupid. No. We all make mistakes. So just be open and say, that I'm just telling you that's wrong because you cannot use the word less than. You must use it not exceeding. Now then, of course, she didn't use all the important phrases like paid up, ordinary share. So you say, what if I use that in the exam? If you use that, good for you. But if you don't use that, examiner is prepared to accept the answer. Okay? Now, so she's saying that if the company is SME, you will still qualify for 100% CA, but the difference is unlimited. Unlimited claim in a year. Okay? Now, please read through. So you have an idea, all right? Now, like withholding tax, they tell you that if you pay interest, it's the same entity. So you don't have a withholding tax problem. But if you are a sub-C, you are talking about two separate entities. So it's perfectly fine that withholding tax may apply, okay? Now, then comes the tax rate. You will see that because you are a non-resident branch, so then you'll be taxed at 24%. But what is taxed at 24%? The income of the branch. Not everything. So you don't go and take the headquarter income and add back to Malaysia and tax the whole thing because you only do business there through the branch. So the branch income is subject to Malaysian tax. Now, whereas this Malaysian subsidy, you will talk about the SME rate. So of course, when you talk about SME rate, then you know what's the SME rate. Now, of course, the rate is the old answer. Now it's 17%. Okay? Now, some students, they want to be very quick in the exam. So their answer lack a lot of detail. For example, some students will go and say that, oh, because you're SME, you will be taxed at 17% and 24%. You just write that, 17 and 24, wrong. Because again, what is the 17 and 24 for? You know the 17 is only applicable up to 500,000, but what 500,000? Is the chargeable income. That's why you have to highlight that the chargeable income, 500,000, 17, and the rest, 24, okay? Now, so this is a good example that is to do with branch and subsidy. That the next page talks about how do you bring back the profit. Okay? So just go through them, but it tested before. So whatever we just covered like that came out in the exam, 16 marks. Your examiner love to repeat question. You never know, right? Okay, this came out again, wow, blah, blah, wow, 16 marks. Then you will remember, wow, Mr. Lau discussed before. That's all I remember. He discussed only, but I cannot remember other things already. Wow, then jialat, okay? So hard work is important. Okay, let's go to the next area. We will see resident status. Okay, I won't discuss like so detailed like those days in the F6 level. So what I'll do is I'll just run through with you the basic rule. But I have in page 8, right? If you see page 8, there are some old video that I do some example discussion. So you want to watch, you can go and watch to enhance your knowledge. Okay? Now, I will only run through with you the very important thing. Okay, can I just go to the diagram and explain to you? Okay, let's start with page 7. Now, you know, in our Malaysian law, for individual, right, we apply quantitative test. So we measure according to the number of days an individual is in the country. All right? So that's what we do. We measure the number of days that you're in the country. Now, and when we measure days in the country, this is what the law says. If you're in the country for part of a day, we assume that as 1 day. So there's no issue about like when I fly off, do I count that or not? The answer is yes. Okay? Now, 7.1a is the easiest. It says that as long as you're in the country in the basis year, that means your 1st January until 31st December, in that year, you must have how many days? Can you remember? Minimum 182, okay? In any pattern, right? So I just draw an example like maybe you have one stretch, 182. You become resident, okay? Now, it now doesn't need to be one stretch. It can be over a couple of periods. Now, but as long as you have minimum 182, okay? The law didn't use the word minimum. The law used the phrase 182 day or more. Now, we are very particular about how we write all that because the meaning can change. Minimum 182 and 182 or more, does it carry the same meaning? It's the same, right? Because 182 or more, meaning minimum is 182. But you can be more, right? Or I use at least 182 is the same, right? Now, can I use more than 182? Cannot, because more than 182 must be 183. So the phrase make a lot of difference. So you have to say it very properly. Okay? Now, so 7.1a is very, very straightforward. You just need 182 days, you become resident. And 182 days is how long? Do you remember? 6 months. About more than 6 months. More than. Actually, if you don't have leap year, that means February don't have 29 days. It must be 1st January until 1st July. So as long as you see the pattern is cross 6 months, you know you have 182 daily comfortably. Huh? Okay. Now, problem is when you don't have 182. So if you don't have 182 in a year, now I'm going to give an example of 71B now. Let's say in 2018, you don't have 182. Now assuming you have 45 days. Okay, you don't have 182. Now remember what does the law says? The law says if this period can link to. Okay, the phrase is link to. Now it's not only linked to, it can be linked to, or what's the other phrase? Linked by. That means it can be end of the year or beginning of the year. Alright? It can be linked by. Now, so the idea of linking is you are there physically. So that the period is continuously, from 1 year, it crossed to the second year. So it will be something like that. The 45 cross to the next year. Okay. I will call this as A. The period that you link is A. Okay? Now what does the law say about A? A must have what? A must be at least 182 consecutive days. A must be at least 182 consecutive days. So notice I'm saying is A must have 182. Do I add the 45? No. See, the 45 doesn't affect you. That's why in this case, even if I change it, you don't have to change it, just understand. If I change this to 5 days, or I change this to 181 days, it doesn't make any difference. Because what you need is the blue color one must have 182. So if A has 182, now for example, let's say I change this to 1 day. Let's say I put here 182, good. Then 2018, you become resident because of 1B. Follow? Now, you can use this 71B based on link to, that means it's based on towards the end of the year. You can also use it based on link by. That means they allow you to borrow from the neighbor based on the left side or the right side. You can take whichever side you like. Okay? Now, but what does it mean that the link period must be consecutive? Okay, example, you don't have to change, I just see. If I change this to 130, and now I tell you that at the back there's another 60, does it help? No, because this is the problem, there's a gap. The moment you have a gap, you fail to fulfill the 182 consecutive. That's the requirement. You must be a continuous 182. So once you have a gap, you fail to fulfill the requirement. So that's why cannot. This alone must be 182. This one cannot because it's not consecutive. Now we know that's the principle, but we also know the law has something called TA. What's the TA again? Temporary absence. Now, temporary absence is basically a principle that tells us you're not in Malaysia, but we assume you're in. Okay? So the concept that you're not in but we assume that you're in. Now, and that's a very important thing, that because this is the one that examiner can play around to see whether you really understand the concept of temporary absent and how it helps you to be resident. Anyone recall the reason that you can be away but it will be regarded as temporary absent? There are 3 reasons. Okay, the first one, a lot of students like one. The one that has a limit 14-day one. What is that? See, you all remember, social visit. So 14-day social visit. The other one is sick, correct or not? Ill health, sick. Then another one is to do with service. That means work or go overseas to study or conference. Now all that is in the note, page 5. Okay, now because you must have learned all that, so I don't have to go through word by word. So I just want to help you to recall back. So if you see page 5, you notice at the bottom there's 1, 2, 3. See or not? So the first one, they say that this temporary absence can be because of connected to service matters, attend conference, seminar, study abroad. And then it goes on and says, second one, ill health. That can be for yourself or your immediate family. And then number 3, social visit that does not exceed 14 days. Now, but the principle of this temporary absence is it helps you to connect. So I give an example, similar again. Now this time, I'm going to do the other way around. Let's say I'm in 2020, and I will only stay in the country like here. Let's say I'll only be here for 30 days. Then I'm going to leave the country now, okay? So can I make myself a resident in 2020 with just 30 days? Now, if I'm at the beginning of the year, then I'll be able to do this. I will see if there is a link. Now this time we call this as link by. So you will borrow from the beginning, link by. Okay, but you only have 50 days. So you fail the 182 requirement, okay? Now, but this time the difference is at the back there. There's a 70-day here. And we're telling you that the reason you're not in is because of temporary absence. So there's a gap. So that gap is one of those reasons that we said just now. Now, but cannot be social visit because social visit got a restriction of 14 days, so it's not long enough. So let's say one of the reasons could be ill health or service matter, or you study abroad. Now let's say that period that you're not in, okay, is 70 days as well. Now will that help you to make yourself a resident for 2020? Because we are looking at 2020. So why 20? So how do you look at that? You will say the 30 days now will now be joined to the 50, and the 50 will continue with the 70. So your imagination now is this period is one whole stretch. So from 50 connect to 70 to the other 70, it will be all the way to the end. Here, all the way to the end. And how many days you have there? 190. Now, that make 2020 a resident because of 71B. Follow? Now, just based on whatever you're seeing now, okay, whatever you have here in the diagram, can you be a resident for Y19 using 71A? 71A cannot? Cannot, So I hope you don't go and assume the 70 day as being in Malaysia. Then you say, oh, then you have 190, right? No, but that one is for 71B, so you cannot mix the law. This is 71A. So you don't have 182 day. Now 1B obviously is no, because the period you link is only 30 days. Okay, so that's why in that case you fail to be a resident by virtue of 1A and 1B. Now 2020 can. Okay, now your temporary absence can overlap 2 years. Meaning, if this is 2018 and 2019, all right, now Okay. So is it okay for me to have a temporary absence like in this manner? The answer is yes. You know, there's perfectly no issues to have a temporary absence that is from 2018 cross to 2019. No problem. But you have to take note of one important issue. Let's say, again from here to here, you have another temporary absence. Now, I'm just going to use alphabet A, B, C. Okay, maybe I put an X also. 2018 linked to which period? Okay, I'll give you a choice. 2018 linked to X, or X plus A plus B, or A plus B, or A plus B plus C. Multiple choice question. First, second, third, fourth. Which one that you are linking to? The period that you link to. Is it X, or X plus A plus B, or A plus B, or A plus B plus C? Answer is 1, 2, 3 or 4? 3. No. Answer is period that you link to. You don't count yourself one. You don't have to count yourself one. Can you see or not? So the period that you link to is only A and B. So when you count the number of days, you only count from here until B. Correct or not? And ask yourself, do you have 1, 8, 2 days? You count from the beginning here until the end of the physical day. And that period that I've just colored, I've just highlighted with green, that's the period that you ask yourself, do you have 182? Okay, question is, why didn't you add C? Because C also is temporary absent. I thought you said if you have temporary absent under 7.1b, you assume to be in the country. Now, why didn't you add C? Now, the reason why C is not qualified, just a short while, if you turn to page 5, okay, you flip to page 5 yourself, all right, turn to page 5. Okay, now we look at page 5, you see the bottom paragraph, they say provided that any temporary absent from Malaysia. Can see? Okay, I show on the screen. Okay. Whenever you read the law, this is how you should read the law. Every time you see all these sub-points, right, they are conditioned, you don't read first. You read the top and the last line to make sense out of it. What does it say? So, the law tells us that the absent that from Malaysia, I mean you're not in the country, you say the absent from Malaysia will be taken to form. You're absent, but they form the period that you need. That means they assume you're in. That's what it says. Now, the absents are taken to form the period, right? But then if you read all the way to the end, they mention if. If is a condition. That means if. So if what? Now, if you read if he is in Malaysia immediately before and after the absence. So that means there's a requirement. Now then only you can start to see all the 1, 2, 3 to tell you what kind of absences are permitted. Now, so back to the diagram that I gave you just now. Okay. So my question is why I didn't accept C as my permitted absence is because the law says before and after the absence, you must be in the country. Now, I have no problem with X and A, I don't have problem with that, because before the absent, I'm in the country. You can see what? The blue color one. After the absence, I'm in the country, which is B. Now, but C got problem. Before the absence, you're in the country, which is here. Now, after the absence, where are you? You don't talk about 2020, you know, because 7.1b only talk about the 2 year only. That's why this whole period is disqualified, which is a very important thing. Because if you advise someone to travel, you have to tell the person, example, if this guy is going to leave the country in the month of April and May, he's going to stay in the country in the month of April and May, so he's going to be here April, May, 2 months, April, May. Then he says he's going to fly off all the way until next year and he come back. And he's hoping to use 7.1b to be a resident. You have to tell him the danger. Because if you only stay here in April and May, then we only count until end of the May, which is 5 months only. How are you going to get 182? Then you must tell the person, hey, no matter what, you must come back 1 day. Maybe October, you just come back 1 day, or July, come back 1 day. Because if you don't come back 1 day, you cannot extend. Then the whole period disqualify you, so which is a very important requirement. Before, after the absent, you have to come back, okay? Now, that's B, okay? C, all right, I told you about the 3 year already, the one that cannot overlap 3 years. So okay, if you want, I draw for you. Meaning, you cannot have a temporary absent that go all the way to 3 years. It just won't apply, because I've told you already, before, after the absent, you must be in the country, all right? Okay, so if you're clear with that, now, how does 7.1c works? Okay, 7.1c works in this manner. Let's say in that particular year, 2020 for example, now the first condition, that year itself, you must have minimum 90 days. That year, minimum 90 days. Now example, I put here 93, good. That year, 90 days. Okay. Describe in words the 4 years that I highlighted. How do you tell me which are the 4 years? How do you say in word? How do you say the 4 years in word? The preceding year. Just say the preceding year. The preceding year. 3 words. Immediately preceding year. So you add the word immediately. So 1 extra, 4 words. So exactly, I don't know what you're trying to say. I know you have that few keywords, but what you're trying to tell me, immediately preceding year. So how would that 3 word tell me is that 4 year that you're talking about? Complete the sentence. Come, add a few more words. Okay, if you add 2 phrases in the 2 blank, then you will tell me correctly that's the 4 year. Okay, what's the first blank? The 4 YA immediately preceding YA 20. Then you will correctly tell me the 4 year. Preceding is sebelum. So the year before, preceding. So that's why when you say the 4YA, preceding what? Precede what? Precede 2020. So that's why you must refer to 2020, the position, then tell me precede that. So the precede is before that. Now, of course, the word immediate is important because if you don't add the word immediate, we don't know which 4 year. Because preceding is just before. So when you say the 4 year before 2020, any 4 year before 2020 can be 1995 also. Correct or not? Any year before 2020. But if you just say immediately, that means right before. Now that's how you phrase it. So to make it proper, you phrase it like that. The 4YA immediately preceding 2020. Okay. The law needs 3 out of the 4. That's a requirement. There's a 3 out of the 4. Now, you have either resident or minimum 90 days in Malaysia. Okay, by all means, you can mix it. So example, let's say, I'm telling you here, I got 200 days, I'm a resident. Let's say we have 100 days and I'm a non-resident. Let's say I have 20 days, I'm a resident. I have 210 days, I'm a resident. Now, assuming that this is the pattern that I have. All right? Okay. As long as I have 3R, all right? I have 3R. Now, I can be good enough to make myself a resident by virtue of 1C. Okay, now, but I want you to see. I'm going to do a small modification to change this. Okay, done, you don't have to change, never mind. Okay, so that you don't get so frustrated. Don't change, never mind. Okay, I'm just changing it just to highlight to you. Now, let's say I'm telling you that now I have 100, all right, and this is enough. Now, can I still be a resident? Now, same thing, you're looking for the 3 out of 4. Now, you have got 1 year resident, 1 year resident. Okay? Okay, maybe I don't want the 100. Let's put this as 60. Now, I need 3. I've got 2 year resident now. So if I don't have 3 resident, then never mind. You go for the other one. Ask yourself, do you have 90 days or not? And in this case, we notice that the 90 days is here. Oops. 90 days is here. Because this one itself tells you there's 100. So you've got the 3rd year also. Now that will still make you a resident. So the whole idea of 71C is you look at the past. Ask yourself in the last 4 years, right, do you have a combination of either 3, any 3, either resident or 90? So you say, if all the year I'm non-resident, I just have 90, 90, 90, cannot, can. So they have a flexibility of R or N or R or 90, okay? Now that is 71C. Okay, the last one, last one, go up. Now, okay, let's say 2020, I have 65 days, but the 3YA before that, I'm resident. Okay, my question now is, can 2020 be resident using 1C? Yes or no? 2020, cannot. Cannot, right? Why? What? Yeah, you're lacking of the 90 days because that year itself must have 90. Now you don't have 90, right? Now it's different, for example, if I change this to, for example, 95. Now then fine, then you are resident because of 1C, but If let's say based on now, you cannot because you don't have 90. Now then the last chance is like that. If 2021, you become resident. So we call these as 3R, 1R. That's the pattern. The 3-year you're resident. The following year you're resident. Now then this year, you will be deemed resident by virtue of 1D. So basically for 1D, right, the days that you can be in the country can be from 0 up to how many days? 89. Make sense or not? It can be anything from 0 up to 89. The answer won't change. Right? Now, for example, if I change it to 0, it's still the same. Right? You are still resident because they are not looking at the day. They are looking at the pattern. 3R, 1R. They become resident. Okay? Now, why is it 0 to 89? Because the moment you're 90, you become C80. Follow? Okay, these are the 4 rules concern resident status for individual. Now, it's very basic. Okay, it's very basic. If you turn to page 9, this is how you've got questioned those days. If you recall your F6 level those days, that's how the question looks like. They give you a statistics of how that individual is in the country or not in the country and tell you the reason. Then they just ask you, okay, tell me, he's resident or not. Now then you will do something like page 10, that's the answer. So I give this to you because I want you to go through yourself as an example to fine-tune and sharpen your knowledge. So if you have forgotten, you go back and try. Then as you try, you can see, oh, you enhance your understanding. Huh? Okay? Now, how would the examiner ask you? Now, examiner asks you something like page 11. Okay, so do me a favor. You must look at page 11 like that. I don't want you to open. Okay? You cover it because the answer is there. Don't look at the answer. Okay? Don't look at the answer. The answer is cursed. Okay? Don't look at the answer. Just the question. Now that's the last thing I'm going to do before we end for today. This is your exam question. Actual exam question. 7 marks only. You judge yourself. How do you find it? Okay? Don't look at the answer. You try yourself. Now I'm going to read this to you. Number 1, explain why Mr. Foreigner will not be a tax resident for 2019. So the answer is he is not a resident. But why? Okay? Why? So maybe he's not here for at least 182 days. I don't know, but you just got to find the reason why. Okay? Now then number 2, they say, considering his flexibility on the timing of days spent in Malaysia, explain how foreigner can achieve Malaysian tax resident for 2020 to 2022. So 20, 21, 22, the next 3 years. We want him to be a resident, but he is flexible in the travel. So you become the consultant. You have to tell, hey, Mr. Foreigner, this is how you travel. No? You must leave the country here. You must come back here so that you become resident for the next 3 years. Now you become consultant to advise him. Okay? So the story say foreigner arrived in Malaysia on 15 April 2019. And he will leave on 18 July 2019. Now in the exam, the question is future based. It's not a historical question. So that means this is a 2019 question. So that as you read the question, the thing has not happened. So if not, you read now, you say, your 2019 passed already. What can I advise him? So but that time in the exam, you still can tell him, you can fly away this day because the thing has not happened. You're giving a future advice. Okay? Now, so he said with effect from year 2020, he intends to live in Malaysia for up to 100 days each year to develop his business interest in the country. Foreigner would like to know how he can attain the Malaysian tax residence for 2020 to 2022. He is highly flexible in regard to his timing of his stay. The visits can be any time of the year, as long as a total maximum of 300 days in the 3 years. From 1st January 2020 to 31st December 2022. 300 days. So you add up, you don't give it an idea that he will stay all the 3 years. For example, you say, oh, to be resident is simple lah. Okay, you stay from 1st January, you go back 31st December, or all the 3 years you're here. Cannot, because the requirement is 300 days. So you must fulfill that, okay? Now, so can I give you a few minutes to try? First, why he is not resident for 2019. Then number 2, how can you make him resident for 2020, 21, and 22? Don't see the answer. Huh? What's the point of seeing the answer? Then you wasted your money already. Okay, part A is the easier one. Is he a resident? No. Why? Less than 182 days. Now, how do you know he's less than 182 days? 3 months only. I mean, from seeing, you know, agak-agak is 3 months only, right? But you should justify your answer with an exact calculation to prove it, okay? Now, so it will be better if you can say, like, for example, now, I leave it to you how you want to write the answer, but before we start, we just quantify the facts first. How long that he's in the country if it's from 15 April to 18 July? Okay, let's just do a quick calculation. 90 minus 14. April got 30 days, right? 30 minus 14, sorry. April got 30 days, so 30 minus 14, then plus 31 days in May, 30 days in June, and 18 days in July. That's how we count the day. So how many days you're going to have? Okay, that's not the answer. I'm just doing a calculation. Okay, so what will you be writing? You're going to say that he is not resident for YA19 because. This is a very good phrase that you just got to keep using again and again and again in your answer. It's like comprehension class those days in standard 2. Because. Because every time when you don't because, that means you're not writing the answer. Because of what? Now, because he did not stay or present in Malaysia. I don't mind what word you want to use. Okay, he did not stay in Malaysia for minimum 182 days. Now, if you say because he only stay for 95 days, wrong lah. That's sure wrong one, because you're not answering. You're telling me what you just got. You get the idea, no? If you just tell me that, oh, he's not a resident because he stayed for 95 days, that's not an answer. That's just quoting to me what you see in the facts only. Correct, no? The answer is because he did not stay for 182. Okay? His stay was just 95 days. Now, the next thing is a bit of so-called like exam wisdom. Do you feel that sentence that we've just written can worth 2 marks? If you feel cannot, then you probably want to write a bit more. Right? So that's usually what we see, that the amount of answers that you have to write in the exam to make it adequate. All right, it's such a simple thing. How can that be 2 marks? Now, so if you're going to add further point, what other reason why he cannot be a resident is because this is only the first year. You know, all the 7, 1B, 1C, 1D, all will depend on something in the past, right? Now, so you have to give me some other reason. Now, for example, you can tell me he failed to what? To link his stay by 182 days or 282 consecutive days in YA 20, what's that, 18 or 2020. Good enough, all right? Now, you can just give any one of the reason. Now, you can just say that he failed to link his stay in YA 19 by Y18 or 2 Y19 of 182 consecutive days. Now, I think that will be an extra reason. So I believe that that should be good enough for me to stop there for 2 marks. So, okay, I get 1 point here, 1 point here. Okay, I'm going to stop. Now, if you say that he don't have any 3 out of 4 Okay? Or you don't have 3 plus 1. You say, can I say all that or not? Of course you can. Because it's still correct. But will you say all of that or not? That's a wisdom. Because a smart guy is a guy who knows all the answer. But a wise person is the person who knows what answers to put. I know you know everything, but doesn't mean you want to put everything out. You can put everything out, but you still get 2 marks. Can you see not? So don't waste your time. So they say in that case, okay, right, now then I stop there. Now if you see the examiner's answers in page 12, right? Three sentences. Foreigners stay in 2019 is 95. Will not be able to satisfy 182-day rule. Okay? Now I'm going to show you the answer. And you must know how to distinguish which is the main answer that stands. Will your answer be marked correct if you just say, Mr. Foreigner will not be able to satisfy 182-day rule? You don't talk about the 95. Will it be right? It's still right. Your answer is not wrong. He is indeed not able to satisfy 182. Okay? Now, if you never write this, you only say that he stay in 2019 is 95 and never say the 182. Will your answer stand? No. So what make the answer accurate is the 182 and not the 95. So it's the second pointer that is important that you must include in the answer. Now then you say, I don't want to write the first line. I just write the second line, can or not? I mean, you still get marks, okay? But the difference is your answer will not look so good. No? Because at the end of the day, it's very simple one. You go to a doctor. After 2 minutes, you come out. Doctor good or not? Compared to you go into a clinic, the doctor sit down and talk to you 25 minutes, although he talk a lot of rubbish. Okay? He talk. While you come out, wow, 25 minutes, this doctor, damn hebat. Very good. Hey, very caring because he talks so long. So it makes a lot of difference, right? So your length of the answer also shows the professionalism. If you've been through SBL, you know what? Longer answer is more professional. All right? Now that's why, but still you need to know the right thing. The right thing that distinguishes your answer is the 182. But the 95 can make the answer looks longer because there's the facts that shows why the law has been failed. Now then you see the examiner write one. Examiner say other rule. Okay, you fail other rule because there is no prior pattern of stay. That's all only. Examiner write that. There's no prior pattern of stay. Now, she made it very simplified with the understanding that because you don't have anything at the back. Now, but I prefer, if I have a choice, I would like to write an answer that's more accurate. Rather than just say there's no prior pattern of stay, I would just say something else like that. Why? Because I'm thinking that if my customer is going to ask me, what do you mean by prior pattern? Then this answer sounds better, okay? But it's fine. Examiner is going to accept any of the answer, all right? Okay, so that's the first part. Now, we must look at the pattern of his stay now. (2019) 20, 21, 22. His stay is from April to July. All right? April to July. Now, you're going to plan his stay now so that the aim is to make R in all that 3 years. With the restriction that you can only have maximum 300 days to utilize. Now, I personally felt that there's one part examiner can be quite unclear or quite misleading. The part that the first paragraph when he said he intends to live up to 100 days in each year. Because if you bear that in mind, you will keep on thinking, I got to make sure like it's around 100 day like that. But you must see carefully, is it up to 100 day ma? Can you see or not? Doesn't mean must be. Can you see? It's just an intention. So, but that's the part that I truly agree that it's a bit confusing. Okay, we did complain to the examiner, it was a clarity issue. All right. Now, because some students will say that if every year must be around 100 days, then how to plan so that all the 3 years become resident? Now, so you have to change it. That's why you have to give him an advice that say that, no, you cannot use your intention. You must change. Okay? Now, first of all, let's see. If you have all these 100, 100, 100, can you make yourself resident in any other year? Which year? 22. Okay, 22 is a resident because of 71C. Because you have the last 3 years, 90, 90, 90. Correct or not? Now, you're going to have a problem. The problem is these 2 years you cannot solve. So you take one at a time. So you say, okay, I solved the first one, 100 days, I solved it. So now the other 2 days, how do you solve? How do you make these 2 years become resident in both years? Now, looks like the only possibility is 71B. You cannot use 71A because 71A needs 182. You don't have 182 in each of the year. So that's why in this case, 71B is going to be your savior. A doesn't work. C cannot come. D cannot come because this is not even the year that you have enough pattern, right? Can you see not? Now, that's why the only likelihood is B. So if your likelihood is B, then how you want to plan? Now, it's up to you. You can have, for example, 182, 1. Correct or not? Now, you can also have an example, 1, 182. Okay? Now, so if you have 1 day, 182 day, you have about 183 days. Now then that will leave the other year to be around 100 over days. So then that will fulfill the 300 days. Now, so if you explain in this way, then you have made all the 3 year resident. Okay? Now, can you make your answer even more bombastic and more powerful? Can. You can include a lot of other things, like for example, you can tell Mr. Foreigner, now in this plan of your stay, right, you are allowed to utilize temporary absence. So you tell him, you can use up to 14 days to travel anytime in this period. Any 14 days that you can travel back as a result of social visit. And then we will still allow that, and that will be taken as a temporary absence. You can give that into the answer. All right? Now, you can also say that ill health, but of course ill health doesn't make sense because why would a person predict himself to be ill health? But you can have social visit. Now, you can advise him that you can travel for social visit in that period, but up to a maximum of 14 days. But then you got to ask yourself, do I need to go to that extent or not? Because if you want to go very detailed, all right, you want to go very detailed, then you can even suggest to Mr. Foreigner, this 182 day, okay, when must you depart the date? When must you come back? And when will the 14-day social visit be? Then you give him the exact date, the travel plan. You say you fly this day, come back this day, fly this day, come back this day. You can do that, you can. But the question is, do I need to do that or not? Now, in this case, 5 marks, what's the point? Because if just 5 marks, don't need, I just make it very general. Okay? Now, that's why you see the examiner's answer here. Now, so she started out with 20, 20, and 21. Okay, she said given that she's flexible in the timing and the pattern, he could qualify to be a resident in 2020 and 21 by linking a short period of stay in 1 year to a long period of at least 182. Now, which is the short, which is the long? It can be both ways. That's why this is 2020 182 plus 2021 1 day. Or 2020 1 day plus 2021 182 day. Okay? So examiner gave you a choice, which is exactly like what I tell you. You can be 182 here or 182 there. It's up to you. Okay? Now, she actually gave the date, from what date to what date. It's fine if you don't give the date as long as you highlight that the 182 must be consecutive, because the word consecutive will explain everything already. Okay? Now, but if you say, oh, I go in with the date, better still. Highlight from what date to what date, from what date to what date. Okay? Now, so you say in this case, foreigner will qualify resident with 182, the 71A rule for 1 year, and then qualify to be resident under 71B for another year. So in this case, either one, which we do not know which is his choice. Now, then for 2022, now you must be present for at least 90 days in 2022. That one is the first condition. Okay? Now, then you must go on and say, he must be at least 90 days or resident for 3 out of 4 immediate preceding year. And can that be satisfied? Now, then you have to highlight to the examiner that 2019 is 95 days, so you have fulfilled the minimum 90. So the examiner proved to you, 2019, you have fulfilled minimum 90. Now 2020, you become resident, 2021, resident. So the 3 out of 4 is there. That's why 2022, he is a resident by virtue of 1C. Now, I think it's better if we can put a conclusion also. The conclusion is to tell foreigner, my advice to you, fulfill your requirement that you will not exceed 300 days. Because the question started with that as an objective. Maximum 300 days. So you probably will be good to just say that the travel plan will fit your requirement of not exceeding 300 days in Malaysia, which is 183 days in both (2020) and 21, and a minimum 90 days in 2022. Now, I think that's a better thing to just conclude off and say that how I fulfill it, so that you have not exceed 300 days in Malaysia over the 3 years. Okay, so this is your exam question on resident status. It's more advisory or planning in nature, so that you have to use your understanding and advise your client. So that's how your standard will be. So how do you think? Is it very tough or okay, right? Not too bad, huh? Okay. Now, of course, now you go exam not so bad lah, because now you just discuss 4 or 5 months later, a lot of things become very different one. Because the amount of knowledge you have. Let me just give you a conclusion about ATX. ATX is not difficult at all. because of the technical part of the exam is not difficult. If you remember every single stuff, it's not difficult. It's difficult because of what? The amount or the volume of things to remember. The whole ATS got about 30 over chapters. Plus your F6, another, let's say 20. So you're going to study 50 over chapters of stuff to remember. But if you are a remember person, okay, very easy. Okay? Please don't change subject. Alright? Because first day, I think I better don't do ATX. Okay? But other than that, it's not so tough. Okay? So I hope that gives you a good introduction. Thank you for the first day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Alright? So, blessed Chinese New Year. Blessed holiday for the rest of y'all. So I'll see you again after the New Year break.